Hello, Facebook. Hello, Kansas City. It's Dr. Peter Carter back with you for another live edition of our Facebook Live presentations we've been doing every Friday to keep you guys informed and share information with you and just trying to do this whole parenting and life thing with you during all these COVID times is kind of what stimulated all this. But there's so many more things to talk about. So we're going to have a fun conversation hopefully today. Today, here at Pediatric Partners, we're going to be talking about kind of the back to school blues. And I don't know if your family's experiencing that, but I know that mine does that from time to time. And even with my little guy, my oldest, just starting kindergarten, we know that we've experienced changes in behavior and all sorts of things, even with the back to preschool transition. So, first off, I want you to know that we see you and we hear you, and it is hard. And I think most likely, most of you are doing absolutely wonderful in this transition and doing your best. And so, to kind of outline a little bit what we'll talk about today, we're going to talk about the behavior problems, the tummy aches, the sleep. I titled it the behavior problems, tummy aches, sleep problems. Oh my, there's so many things that change as kids go back to school each and every year. It's just a transition not only for the child, but for the entire family. So we're going to talk about kind of what's going on in the background of all this, what's kind of causing that as the root cause. We're going to talk about what we see and what we hear from you all daily, especially this time of year as school transitions and fall happens. We're going to talk about some things, some resources for you. We're going to go through some tips on kind of navigating all that crazy back to school nonsense that happens with our children, the goods and the bads. And for fun, I've reached out to a couple professionals, a couple of our nurse practitioners, just for some fun back to school, just snippets of tips to keep your sanity. So we're going to share those. And then for even more fun, in honor of one of my favorite professors from college, one of my biology professors who used to do fun limericks at the end of some of his lectures, even about stuff like genetics and crazy stuff. He would do a limerick about those. I've written a COVID limerick for back to school. So if you stick with me, or if you're just tuning in later, fast forward to the end and that limerick will be there for you and some of the tips for the nurse practitioners. So some great tips from some great nurse practitioners, a couple that we have here, each of whom has a handful of kids at home and is doing this whole mom thing, just like I'm doing that dad thing with all of you guys together. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. So back to school, what's going on? Everybody's so excited, and it's just different this year. COVID has made things just kind of confusing, and the back to school virtual, or you're just doing all homeschool, or you're doing a hybrid, or maybe you started all in class, or you went to a new school together because you didn't want to go to the other school. There's so many different scenarios out there, but in general, I want to talk about going back to school just creates problems for kids sometimes. Despite the joys of getting back with their friends rather, and learning new stuff and having a new teacher they're excited about, there's just some natural inherent things that happen that, when you go back to school, things change. One of the biggest things we see is there's changes to sleep patterns. So most of us are a little bit more lax sometimes in the summer months. And even if you have toddlers or if you have big kids or you have high school kids that, the high school kids may not go to sleep till 3 a.m. and then they sleep till 3 p.m. And it takes a while for those sleep habits to get back to normal. So that happens. You're not sleeping right. You're not going to sleep consistently at the same time, waking up consistently at the same time in the morning. Then you might be a little bit off, and that can cause some behavior and some mood and some attention and some hunger and just kind of some changes to your body that you're trying to experience and navigate. So that's definitely something to kind of be aware of, that sleep is changing and the habits are changing. There's also changes to exercise and eating patterns in the summertime. Hopefully, a lot of us are outside more. That being said, some people are more sedentary in the summertime because they're just, I don't know, doing more video game time or things of that nature. But most folks are a little bit more active in the summer months when it's nice outside and playing and swimming and going for, ball games and hikes and those kind of things that are fun. And those kind of keep us regular and give us, the endorphin release to give us good mood changes. They also help us stay regular on the potty for the little kids and the big kids too. Exercise helps keep those things normal and stable. So when you get back into school, there's often, a little bit of kind of time for recess or for gym class. As you get older, those things are kind of taken away. And so then there's less opportunity for exercise unless you're making time for that either before school or after school in the form of sports or after school in the form of just, hey, going outside and going for a bike ride. So exercise changes, eating patterns change, where in the summertime there's more, I don't know, regimented meal times, and then also a lot of grazing sometimes. There's opportunities to drink a lot of water, and sometimes as you go back to school, there's less snacking, and then there's different foods. And while some meals at lunch are healthy at school, there's a lot of them that still aren't. Like I don't know, looking at random menus in districts, there'll be like the pepperoni pizza stick with a French toast. I don't even know, burrito, and you're like, what is this stuff? So not necessarily the healthiest, and sometimes pre-processed foods that are not as good. They certainly have good fruits and vegetables, but our kids may not choose to eat those at that point when nobody else is around watching. So anyway, the eating patterns may change. Maybe less fruits and vegetables, maybe less or just different snack patterns, and that can kind of change kind of how we're feeling inside and how kids and adults are perceiving those actions. There's definitely changes to toilet access and timing of needing to go to the bathroom. So this is huge. I can't even tell you how many messages or questions I've already gotten this year. But then, of course, every year around this time, questions about tummy aches and questions about they don't want to eat their dinner because they feel full immediately. And a lot of times that just winds up being constipation. And we'll talk a lot about that later, where a child who's used to kind of being at home and, hey, I need to poop, and especially the little ones, but this is even up to the big ones, my high school and even some college patients, that they don't take the time to go to the bathroom because they were in class and they didn't want to miss anything, or they were playing and didn't want to miss anything at recess. And when the whole class lines up to go to the potty, for those that are back in school, or for those even that are home doing virtual school, they might need to go to the bathroom, but they're in the middle of their 1 hour where the teacher might be giving a lesson, and they don't want to miss that. So you kind of hold it in, and then you try to go to the potty later, and it just is not as successful. So we see that habit a lot. We also see in the younger kids a lot of poop smears, a lot of accidents of a little bit of urinary incontinence or some things that happen. So those are things to be aware of, that those can happen just because of kind of having to hold it in when you don't want to, or not wanting to take a break because they're having fun. So be aware that those things can happen because it's just kind of the back to school changes. There's also just stress in general. I mean, just going back to school, any sort of new transition in anyone's life creates a little bit of good stress, right? Stress helps us run if a bear is attacking us in the woods. So there is some good from stress to be had. But stress just from doing virtual learning for the first time, stress from missing your friends because you're doing virtual learning, stress from meeting new friends if you're in person, or meeting new friends on the computer and just kind of wondering what that's going to be like each and every year. That's a thing. My older patients have said, boy, I've had some really hard classes this year. They're really challenging all of a sudden. And doing them virtually has been different and more stressful on top of that. Being away for so long from our regular education and our routines, that alone is stressful. So people that have been out of school or out of the swing of things, we've been out of this for like 6 months, right? So the transition, the change there can be challenging. And then for all of us, just going from a time where you get to kind of be a little more free with your time and your choices, just the sitting still and having to concentrate for so long, that not only is just it's emotionally taxing, but it can be physically taxing too. Just that sitting down and not being able to move as much and not being able to get the wiggles out for the little kids. And that can kind of lead just to fatigue by the end of the day for not only the high school students, but also just the preschool students and everywhere in between. So there's a lot going on there that makes this back to school transition difficult. And then you throw on top of all of that, yay, COVID. COVID's here, right? We talk about that a lot in these Facebook Lives so far. So that just makes everything emotionally and physically kind of exaggerated and amplified, and all those feelings that they're feeling, or the stresses that may be happening, or parent stress, projected to the kids, or the kids feeling stresses because of changes that have happened, parents losing a job, or having sick loved ones, or perhaps even people in your family that have passed away from COVID, or friends that you knew. So there's a lot of heavy hearts right now, and so I think the biggest thing, and we'll talk about this later, but is just to have grace for all those moments and just say, hey, we're doing our best today. So as I kind of alluded to a little bit, kind of saying what's happening, what we see here in the doctor's office is lots of calls and questions about meltdowns, about not being able to tolerate it at home, do a little bit better at school a lot of times, the behaviors, but then at home it's just a meltdown and they've lost it. There's hitting, there's arguing, there's just behaviors that are just different and more, again, amplified and exaggerated than they would be on a normal day, where a child may get upset about something small, or a teenager may get upset because something happened with a friend, but now it's like, whoa, this is level 10 real fast instead of just kind of happening and getting through it. I mentioned about constipation. We get a lot of questions about tummy aches at this time of year. Tons of questions about tummy aches, and tons of questions about the accidents in your underwear for little kids that have had to smear a poop or pee on accident sometimes. Tons of questions about tummy pain in general with eating. A lot of times it's toward the end of the day, or headaches. Those kind of things come as questions to our office, and to our nurses through the nurse line as well. It's a reminder that the gut is just totally innervated. Your stomach and your gut is lined with so many nerves that a lot of stress and other things can kind of also be sensed as tummy pain. So we know that some anxiety is out there, and there's worries, and there's worsening depression as well. There's ADHD kids that are struggling because even if they've been on medicines, the medicines may be just needing to be tweaked or adjusted because the learning environment has changed. They're not just sitting in a classroom all day long like they're used to. They're doing short spurts of learning, and they're doing some homework and short spurts of learning again, or their classes are longer because of the way that their school is set up. So just lots of changes. But we see lots of those concerns. We see them and hear them, and that's our goal, is to kind of today, and then also each day when you call us or when you come in for those appointments, to kind of follow up on this stuff, which we always encourage at the beginning of school, to make sure it's not something else more scary, because other scary things still are diagnosed all the time. But a lot of times, common things being common, a lot of this stuff is the mixture of all those kind of concerns that we've talked about. So one place to go for some great advice and all this kind of stuff, the American Academy of Pediatrics has a great website called healthychildren.org that they have a lot of advice and tips for parents. So I always encourage families to kind of look through there. And not surprising, believe it or not, the 3 words they say that are important to work on for all people going back to school: nutrition, sleep, and exercise. And what do you know? That's something that is simple and that we know about and we know works. It's something that we talk about every single well visit, from the time your little baby is born to the time they go off to college and beyond, about how nutrition and sleep and exercise as they get older are super valuable and important for so many things, for the mind, body, and the spirit. So we'll continue to talk about all those, but I encourage you to read about that stuff on healthychildren.org. And of course, our website always has an insane amount of information. Great thanks to Dr. Stuppy for being our kind of tech guru on our website and our Facebook and everything, keeping those up to date with some great advice and tips for you all. And that's pediatricpartnerskc.com. So follow those as great resources for you. So tips for constipation. We're going to jump into some tips in general for some of these kind of concerns that are out there. Constipation, I always say, and learning from some of the best GI docs around, some of the best things you can do are very simple, and increasing water is one of the biggest things. Most patients that I have and will say, my child and I, we drink tons of water. And then oftentimes when I hear how much, it's some, but it always could do better. And even if you are drinking a lot, if there's constipation, which means hard stools by definition that are kind of painful to come out, then drinking more water is always a great solution to that. And so whatever you're drinking, I say, hey, drink another cup, drink another 2 cups on top of that. A lot of folks are great at bringing water bottles to class. So kind of get in a habit of bringing your water bottle to class, encouraging your child to eat that, or drink that rather, frequently. Certainly fruits and vegetables are really helpful. Those high fiber foods are great. High fiber breads, some breads have more fiber per slice, so look for those little tricks. I mentioned exercise earlier. So combination of dietary changes, exercise, and then another great tip is just sitting on the toilet often. And this is especially true for really any age, but a lot of times for my 4-year-old to kind of 8-year-old patients, I see this a lot where they're just too busy and they don't want to sit down. But kind of scheduling that in where in the morning they sit on the toilet, before they go to bed they sit on the toilet once or twice, and then about 20 minutes to 30 minutes every time they eat, have them sit on the toilet just for a couple minutes. So they eat, 20 or 30 minutes later, sit on the toilet, and a lot of times having a stool to keep their knees up to their chest. Or sometimes I've heard it termed cowboy style, where you sit on or cowgirl style, sitting on the toilet backwards and putting your hands kind of up on the tank, and put a book up there if you want to, but something to get them in a position where their knees are up to their chest and they can more easily poop if they need to. So we talk about poop a lot. We've even got a scanned Bristol stool chart that kind of talks about poop to help our patients identify kind of what their stools are looking like. So it's a very common topic in pediatrics, and it's something that we're happy to kind of guide you through if there's problems. There's also some things out there, there's Miralax, which is a great helpful product. Sometimes probiotics can be helpful for those that are having troubles. Magnesium is something that's often deficient in diets, and a little bit of magnesium citrate or some other forms of magnesium are very helpful to kind of give you some of that motility you need to kind of help push those through. So we're happy to kind of guide you through what we think is best for your child's situation, kind of on a one-on-one basis to know what's going on, to see what would be best, because not all of it's as far as the treatment is created equally, but some of those tips, many of which you can find on our website, are just generally helpful for all of us. So consider some of those if you're feeling your child is struggling with some of those issues. For food and snacks tips, just kind of be consistent in trying to get your child a healthy breakfast, not just a Nutri-Grain bar on the way out the door, or processed food. Processed foods increase palm oils and different things that are in there, which increases constipation by nature sometimes. So the more processed foods, the more constipated people get and backed up. More real foods from the earth, less constipated is a good general rule. But if you can kind of get a good healthy breakfast and try to get as many food groups in each meal as you can, from grains and fruits and vegetables to a little bit of dairy if you want to, and some protein and some fat, all that stuff is good to give your child energy kind of throughout the day, for the short term and the longer term. So kind of find a nice variety. Try to get it the same at lunch. If you pack a lunch, kind of look for all those options. Try to limit the extra chips and limit the cookies and those kind of things that are not as nutritionally balanced. And have them drink water at lunch is great. Milk or water are two favorites in pediatrics for children to drink. Trying to avoid the fruit juices, just because of cavities and increased sugar intake and stuff that is often a challenge for folks. So then an after school snack with a little bit of fat, a little bit of protein, go for it. Again, try to keep them less processed and more kind of healthy. Throw a fruit or vegetable in there. Those kind of things can be really good. And then drink water after school. I'll often challenge kids to drink a water bottle by lunch, water bottle by after school, and a water bottle kind of before bedtime or in the early evening, so they can stay decently hydrated and have energy from all those things. I kind of talked about exercise, and you hear us talk about exercise a lot, but trying to get anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes of play a day to keep your heart rate up is really, really important to get the aerobic exercise in, not just kind of hey, I went for a casual, slow walk. That's great, and it's good, and it's getting some exercise and moving your body and burning calories, but sometimes getting that a little bit more intense kind of play in. And I call it that for kids. It's play. By golly, go and have fun. Go chase on the playground. Go kick a soccer ball around. Go throw a football around with your older kids, or go dance, or whatever it is that you enjoy. Do it and do it with some joy. For all folks, I think it's important to still be social, right? We're so isolated, and it's just hard. I know my family struggles with this. I struggle with this, just feeling isolated, and it's really weird right now in our society. So try to find ways to socialize via the Facebooks, via Facebook Live, via other kind of ways, your FaceTimes. It's going to a park and playing outside with people. There's a lot of good evidence that being outside, and if you're close to people, wearing a mask if you want to, but just kind of staying 6 feet away and being outside is great and pretty healthy. I've talked before on these about riding bikes. It's a great kind of social distance sport. Kicking a soccer ball. Wash your hands a lot if you're around people, and just kind of be safe and smart about it. But I think being social is important. If you're transitioning into like middle school or high school, I think it's great if there's opportunities to get involved at all. I think that's great for mental health to find a group that has similar interests, and if it's a team sport that's participating in team sports, those things can be relatively safe if proper precautions are taken. If it's jumping into a club that's meeting virtually or whatever, because it's a gaming club or it's an acting club, or you're doing singing stuff or whatever it is, an instrument, I encourage you to do those and kind of look for opportunities to feel engaged and connected. I think that will be good for everybody. And then sleep. Can't say enough to just kind of recreate good sleep habits. And that means turning off our tablets, turning off our phones, turning off our computers and our TVs, anything with screens, an hour or two before bedtime. And I'm not going to say that I'm the best at this at all. My wife will tell you that I'm not. But definitely, if you're feeling like you're in a rut or feeling tired, that turning those devices off and kind of jumping into some more relaxing activities, what we call music, or picking up a book for a little while, or having time where you chat as a family just to kind of wind down for the day. Those things are really, really helpful to kind of reboot your sleep cycles and get your REM cycles back on pace of where they should be. So yes, just try to work your sleep time, your bedtime. If it's been 11 o'clock and that's not enough sleep for a high school kid generally, or a middle school kid, Just start backing that back by 15-minute intervals or even 30-minute intervals every few days or weeks and kind of get that back as soon as you can to kind of a more normal schedule. Most sleep experts would say trying to be throughout the year on a pretty similar sleep schedule where you go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time is ideal to kind of keep your body as healthy and your mind as sharp as it can be. A reminder that if we're not sleeping well, we all have ADHD. We all have, grumpiness. We all have shortness. And the end of the day is awful because we're just more tired. As we experience with a lot of little kids, we see that they're just grumpier in the afternoons before dinner, and then like, hey, I was just hungry. So or tired by the end of the day. So kind of take those tips that you kind of know in the back of your head and go, oh yeah, let's start applying those a little bit more, and that will be helpful for everybody, I think. So those are some of the mainstay tips, and then I just wanted to share with you a few tips. I'll log in here from our nurse practitioners, and you'll kind of see it funny from a couple of them, a little bit of some themes that you'll see here. But from one, it said the advice was for parents: stay consistent and give yourself some grace. Amen. I believe in that 100%. Just keep giving yourself grace because this is a difficult time. Always every year, and so with COVID, it's even crazier. If you're finding yourself sleep deprived, take some time for yourself. A healthy child has a parent who takes care of themselves. Boy, what a great point. I have to stop there and just say, yes, I agree. Take care of yourself before you take care of your kids, and that will make happier and healthier and more robust children in our world, more resilient children in our world. And then she says, you'll be more patient and consistent if you have your needs met. And if all else fails, there's always earplugs. So some great advice there from one of our nurse practitioners. Another bit of advice comes, and it says some similar stuff, but I'll read through it here. It says, recharge daily, aka the mommy or daddy timeout. Take at least 5 minutes daily as a break to recharge from your kiddos. Step outside, go sit in a quiet room, lay on your bed, deep breathe, or even hide out in your laundry room while your kids are screaming on the other side of the door. I don't know who's done that, she says, and I can't relate to that at all. No, never. Yeah, totally. Can't take 5 minutes away from the little ones, she says. When all else fails, earbuds go a long way because it's at the end there. Drown out the noise with some good music while still keeping an eye on the kids. And then call that good friend too. I think that's important for us to reach out to friends and family that are going through the same thing or just able to listen to us sometimes when we need to talk. Stepping away, even if for a second, does wonders to recharge before tackling the crazy life of parenting. So thanks to those practitioners who kind of threw in some good tips and advice. I think it's sound advice. So try to have fun with it. Try to laugh. There's times where my wife and I have just cracked up at just the things that are happening with our child going back to school and kind of figuring it all out and just trying to make light of some of the craziness of back to school. So, and enjoying the joys when they're happening because there was a ton of those as well. And I know you guys are experiencing those too from a lot of the stories we've shared in the office. So, without further ado, I've got my Back to School Blues limerick that I wanted to share with you. And again, in honor of a wonderful mentor of mine in college in my biology days, Dr. Larry Williams at K-State. So, here's the little limerick that I have for you guys today. The kids are in school. Hooray! Wait, in person or virtual today? With COVID-19, we all want to scream. Just do your best effort, I say. So there you go. Do your best effort. Happy Red Friday. Go Chiefs this weekend. Hope everybody is staying well. Hope you're settling into a school routine. And a lot of these little things that are happening at the beginning of the school year will get better in the next week or two, sometimes just with just time and change. So hopefully there'll be some helpful tips that you guys can utilize. And I look forward to chatting with you at a future Facebook Live or in person here in the clinic, Pediatric Partners. Take care. Thanks.